The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Friends in Recovery podcast, the podcast that is here to help you, a loved one, or a friend get started down the road to recovery. This is the Friends in Recovery podcast, brought to you by the Genesis House. Genesis House, providing a safe, nurturing environment to heal from addiction since 1992. Please be a friend and share our message with a friend on Podbean, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or YouTube. And now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
Hey, welcome everybody, Friends in Recovery podcast. I am Mike Miles, the Podfather. I have my guest, Bob Cox, with me today. And I want to say thank you to our producer extraordinaire over there, Bob. That's Ed Sullivan.
I'm happy to be here, as always.
So nice having you. Usually it's two Eds, and we know that two Eds are better than one, but
oh boy,
we got the good Ed today.
It's going to be one of those days.
And, I just want to take this time to thank Genesis House for setting us up in this beautiful studio. What do you think, Bob? Nice studio?
That's gorgeous. It really is.
That's right.
The people have a beautiful place to sit and
Absolutely.
enjoy their cigars and their
podcast.
refreshments
That's right.
in this beautiful podcast.
And, as a result of being here, we can spread the message of hope every week. If anyone out there enjoy the Friends in Recovery podcast, join us for our Friends in Recovery Community of Support events. We hold monthly gatherings in Florida, New Jersey, Massachusetts, coming soon. And check our Facebook page for updates. Follow our Facebook page for updates and subscribe on YouTube. We are always looking to feature new recovery stories and professionals who are taking a fresh approach to addiction, treatment, and recovery. Reach out on our Facebook page for more info. And today we have a special guest, Ed. Let me just back up a bit. Jersey Ed can't be here today. I don't know what he's doing. I think he's doing a polo pony event somewhere. Yeah, he's into that.
Leave that one alone.
He likes to groom the polo ponies, but no, Ed's not here today, and I did speak to him a few minutes ago, and we do have a very special guest today, a good friend of mine and a friend of Genesis House, a guy who's hit the ground running, and he's accomplished a lot in his young life, and it's Bob Cox. Bob, welcome to Friends in Recovery.
Well, thank you, Michael. I don't know about young life, but and I don't know about a lot, but geez, it's really good to be here.
Sure.
Especially for Genesis. I can't speak highly enough about the Genesis House. As you know, I was there, and I credit the Genesis House with saving my life. I do,
certainly.
And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I was a tough learn. I was a tough. I didn't pick up well. You know what I mean? It took me 2 times to actually get the message, but boy, once they sunk it into me, it really lasted. And those people down there are the salt of the earth. They are. They're there for one reason: to help you stay sober, to help me stay sober, and they're just a wonderful asset to people that really need help, like me. And Steve Adams and his staff, Rob and Mike, and I'm going to leave somebody else. I'm going to stop there, but those people are just amazing.
Sure.
And they spend their entire life helping people in recovery. And
certainly.
It's just an amazing thing to witness and to have been a part of. And then I'll tell you what, if you're out there and you're questioning yourself, and let me tell you, from someone that thought all was lost, I thought I was way too far gone. I really did. This stuff works, man. It does. Reach out and get some help, because jumping into the fellowship of AA, NA, whatever it happens to be, there's help out there to save your life. There really is. And I'm case in point. I drank for 40 years and unabatedly had I really didn't care about anybody but me. And, for them to be able to see that life does exist without booze, for me, and it is just a miracle in the making, and it's nothing short of that. I really mean that. And I am so grateful that the Genesis House was there for me and helped me find my way to this point, one day at a time.
Certainly. A lot of people, they fight this disease of addiction, and they think that they aren't going to get any better. They have the intent of quitting. They want to quit. They want to stop, and they might try to stop on their own, which is really very difficult to do. I'd say maybe 3% of people that get recovery might fall into that category where they did it on their own. But I can honestly say that, I've been actually my 33rd year of sobriety is tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, exactly. 33 years ago, I went to Seminole Point up in Sunapee, New Hampshire, and a friend of mine drove me there, Dave Siemens. He was a police officer, Drake guy, and he's no longer with us. Great guy. Never forget him. But 33 years has gone by so quick, so quickly, and but the recovery has been wonderful. And, my life's just, like you say, it would never have been what it is today if it wasn't for recovery and the people around recovery. Well, let me just say this about Genesis House, Bob, before I get back to you. What I like about Genesis House is, I'm a clinical social worker, licensed alcohol drug counselor. I send a lot of people to recovery, and I try to help people get recovery, which is in and of itself a very difficult job. But Genesis House isn't a conglomerate. It's not a bunch of Genesis House. There's one, and there's only so many beds. And I couldn't agree with you more with the staff there. They are so into getting people well, and I've sent quite a few people, friends, family, close people I love, just a lot of police officers, firemen, correctional officers, just friends in general down there for help. And I got to tell you, my success rate with Genesis House far supersedes any other facility I've ever used. And just being part of this podcast for the last 18 months, no, 20 months, it's been amazing. And I really appreciate you coming on today. You have a lot going on. You're just about to start on a venture that you've been thinking about, working towards, and talking about for quite a while, and now you finally broke ground. Tell us about it, Bob.
Okay, well, thanks, Mike. And this is just an example of what's potential that is out there in a sober life. When I was down at the Genesis, I was, just the everyday thing, the AA meetings that would happen as part of the regular day down there. But one day they took us to an off-site meeting, and it was at an establishment in, I believe it was in Delray, called the EDI Club, Easy Does It, AA Mantra. And I was just boggled at the fact that nothing else was happening in that building except AA meetings. And after the meeting, I got talking to one of the gentlemen who worked there, and I said, "What is this all about?" And he said, "Well, all we do is we're set up for all day long AA meetings. We have groups come in, and they set up, they reserve meeting times, and they come in on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, whatever, and have their AA meetings in this establishment. And we're open 365 days a year. And the theory behind it is, if someone is between meetings, now, I'll get back to that in a second, but if someone is between meetings, and they're feeling the urge, they know they can come here, and there may not be a meeting going on, but they can come in here and get a cup of coffee and talk to someone that knows what they're going through. And that might be the difference between breaking out and not breaking out. And so the fact that that's there, and it just caught me, it caught my ear, and it really caught my curiosity, And so when I came back from Genesis, I was desperate not to break out, not to relapse a second time. And I was going to meetings everywhere because I was just, like I said, I was desperate not to fail. I felt like a loser. I did. I felt I was I was self-loathing. Why can other people do it? I can't do it. And I was determined to make sure that I did everything in my power to make sure that it didn't happen.
Right.
So I was going to meetings everywhere. Massachusetts, New Hampshire, didn't matter. Day, night. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't find an establishment like the EDI Club in Florida that the Genesis House had steered me towards. And I called you, and I said, "Mike, how come this doesn't exist in Massachusetts?" And you said, "I don't know, no reason." So I said, "I'm going to look into it." So I did, and I went down to the EDI Club. I contacted the president down there, and he welcomed me with open arms. And I went down and visited with Steve Adams and shared at one of his day sessions, and saw Rob and John and Michael and a bunch of the staff that again had saved my life, and told them why I was there, and that just transpired into going into a different house called Crossroads in Delray Beach, which is multifaceted, not simply AA. It's AA, NA, any addiction. Gamblers Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous. Al-Anon was a big part of that program. And when I saw it, I was just so impressed. I watched for like 2 hours, and I was with a friend of mine that I had met at the Genesis house, Dave Hicks. And he had taken me, when I told him I was coming, he said, "Oh, we'll go to dinner and I'll take you to a couple of meetings in the area." That's how he brought me to Crossroads. And when I saw the environment that it was, and it was just basically a community of recovery that was coming together, multifaceted dimensions of recovery.
Right.
And I said, you know what? That's what I'm bringing to Lowell. And came back and established Troubled Waters, incorporated with the state. And the DBA, the Doing Business As, is the Bridge Club of Greater Lowell, and that's exactly what we're doing. And as of 3.5 weeks ago, we have a home, and it's at 33 East Merrimack Street in downtown Lowell.
Right. Bob says he has a hall. You have to see this place. It's enormous. It's not just a hall. It's several halls. It's in a. You could not have found a better place. And Bob was very frustrated. He was like a racehorse that the gate wouldn't open. He just wanted to go, and there was a lot of obstacles in the way. And finally, everything just fell into place. It seems like the location. That's a big thing. And this place has plenty of parking. Everyone knows where it is. It's on a bus line. It's near the downtown area. Lowell has a huge population of people that live under bridges, that live in a shelter, that don't have a place to live, that struggle with addiction. Although it's a lot better than it was in the 80s, it still has a lot of issues. The father and sisters and mothers of Lowell probably wouldn't like hearing that. Lowell's a beautiful city. I was a cop in Lowell 35 years. I grew up in Lowell. I love Lowell. I lived in Draker for 31 years, but to me, Lowell's my home. I just love it. But the place you got, the location is just without a doubt. It couldn't be a better place. You couldn't have found a better place.
I agree. It's 11,000 square feet. It's bigger than what we need right now.
Right.
But we're going to be opening with about 6,000 square feet, 3 major meeting rooms. We're going to have a full-service kitchen, which is a big part of this. My wife and I have owned and operated a restaurant for the past 18 years. So having that, skill set, I guess you'd call it, I figured I'd put that to use. So we're going to take people in early recovery that want to get back into the workforce, that are basically unemployable at this stage of the game,
right,
and try to usher them through and train them in every aspect of the kitchen,
right,
so they can go through. And in fact, Mike Lenzi, this is something you don't know, who is the culinary coordinator for the vocational technical school, is meeting me on Friday to design our kitchen, training kitchen like the culinary school at the Voc.
Well, that's one thing about Lowell I just like to mention too, is like Mike Lenzi's a very successful businessman. He has a family of just hardworking, lovely people. His son Mike Riley is a kid I know very well. He's a young man now, not a kid. But the Lowell people. A good friend of mine, Danny Durkin, once said he's a Lowell guy, and I thought for a minute. I said, "What the hell does that mean?" He says, "You know what it means. It means somebody that's from Lowell. It's a big city, but it's a really small city, and we help each other."
We do.
And talk a little bit about Peter Jarvis, because there's a guy that I just
well, I'm glad you brought him up, because if you didn't, I was gonna. Yeah. I had called on a building, one of the 30 pieces of property I had looked at in Lowell, and it was just a little sign I saw up on Upper Chelmsford Street in Lowell. Space available. So I called on it, and this gentleman called me, and it turned out he said, "What's the use?" And I told him what it was for, and he said, "I have a building you might want to look at." It turned out to be 33 East Merrimack Street, and the guy's name is Peter Jarvis, who owns Jarvis Lincoln Mercury in Lowell. And this man turned out to be a godsend in every description of that word. I mean it. This guy has been, he knows the problems that we're facing. He understands, he empathizes with people in recovery. And he's worked with us. I can't even tell you how much this man has bent over backwards in like 6 directions to make this happen. There's someone driving this bus, and it's not me, Mike.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm on it for the ride, and I'm glad I'm there. But this guy, Peter Jarvis, has done nothing but be a godsend, and he's just so benevolent with other phases of the community.
Right.
As soon as I heard it was him, I knew it was a score. Right. And when I walked up to meet him that morning, he called me and he said, "When do you want to look at the building?" I said, "How about 15 minutes?" And he said, "Okay." So I went and met him and looked at it. When I pulled up in front of the building, honestly, I pulled up and I looked at the front of the building, and the roof line looks exactly like the front of Crossroads. I said, I'm not the most religious person in the world. I will say that. But I pulled up and I was like, okay, God, I got the message.
Right.
And that's how I feel. And I mean, and Peter Jarvis is part of that message.
Right. You said benevolent, and that's the word. When I think of a guy like him, that should be his middle name because he's so benevolent. We're taking a quick break. We'll be back with Bob Cox, Friends in Recovery podcast. Thanks to Genesis House and our good producer over there, extraordinaire, Ed Sullivan, is giving me the high sign. We'll be back.
Genesis House is a premier substance abuse and rehabilitation facility located in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. We have been providing the highest quality of addiction treatment since 1992 and are accredited by the Joint Commission. We offer a range of programs that include detox, residential treatment, dual diagnosis, a Christian track for people who want to incorporate their faith into treatment, a uniform services track, and we work with most major insurance carriers. Genesis House is led by a dedicated team of administrative and clinical professionals, and we stand on our commitment to excellence in recovery services. Contact us today to find out more about our program. Take the first step and call Genesis House at 800-737-0933 or visit us on the web at www.genesishouse.net. That's 800-737-0933 or www.genesishouse.net. Begin your journey to a long and successful recovery with Genesis House.
Welcome back, everybody. Friends in Recovery podcast. Jersey Ed not here today. I'm missing him, but we'll be in contact. And I just want to take this time again to thank Genesis House for setting up this beautiful studio for us to podcast weekly from. So my guest, Bob Cox, talking earlier about his new venture. It's called the Bridge Club. It's really called Bridge Over Troubled Waters. It's doing business as Bridge Over Troubled Waters, but the Bridge Club has a nice ring to it. I love that. I love that Lego, yeah, that logo, because it really is going to be a bridge club, a bridge to better times, better opportunities, a better life for many people that want to, jump in and try to get their lives together. Talking about Lowell again, and the fathers and sisters of Lowell, people that run the city managers, the city council. We're very fortunate that we have a very understanding. Lowell's always run smoothly, no matter who the city manager has been. It's had its ups and downs, but certainly we have a city manager now who I think is a very talented woman.
I agree.
She could do no wrong as far as knowing the ins and outs of just about anything, any problem you would bring to her. And Eileen Donahue was her name. She's an attorney. She was a senator, and she's also a very good city manager right now. And you had some dealings with her and people like her. Why don't you talk a little bit about some of the people you've encountered that have helped you along the
Gladly.
road
It's funny because this concept started as just something that was going to simply bring a meeting place back to Lowell.
Yep.
And as a result, as I said, I'm not driving the bus here, so people have been put in front of me, and it's just it's a miracle. But it started off early on in my restaurant that someone was asking for a gift card for a golf tournament. It turned out to be the Lowell Regional Vocational Technical High School graphic arts director, who, when I told him about this potential, what we were thinking about doing here, he took that upon himself, and he had a contest with his graphic arts seniors to design a logo for Troubled Waters, which they did, and we had a contest. A winner was named. We picked our logo, which is our logo now, and that person got a prize and a gift certificate for a market basket and and a few other things, and also the right to put that on their resume for college, for their college resume, I should say. But from there, State Rep Tom Golden, great friend of mine for a long, long time, and yours, is on our board of directors. Tom has been the champion for the opioid crisis since day one.
Certainly.
I reached out to Tommy to be a board member, so Tom is on board, and through his intervention, we got into UMass Lowell. The thought was to get a graduate student to do our business plan so we could go to the state for money.
Right.
And when the graduate program started to talk about it, the health department got wind of it. They reached out to us. They wanted to help us. So now the health department of University of Lowell is thinking about maybe doing some kind of co-op programs down there with their students to potentially have them in to do like peer counseling type thing, which is great. So now we've got the UMass Lowell on board along with the high school, and then comes along looking as part of a building from the old Saints Memorial Hospital campus for Lowell General Hospital. Lowell General Hospital wants to partner with us. I went in and met with Amy Hoey. She loved the program, knows the needs, obviously, as an administrator of the hospital. And her words to me was, Lowell General Hospital wants to partner with you on this. So now the hospital is involved. We've got Senator Barry Feingold involved. We've got all the state representatives of Lowell, Colleen Gary, David Dangle, Tom Golden, obviously. And I reached out to the city manager, Eileen Donahue, to see if she could think of anything I was missing in dealing with the city of Lowell after I had met Peter Jarvis. So she sat down with me graciously for a good hour, and she loves it. She loves the concept. She loves the people that are involved, and is all excited about it. And told me the department heads that I should speak to help us in any way we could, and they've done just that. So we've got the entire city of Lowell behind us.
Rita Mercier.
Rita Mercier. How do you say enough about Rita Mercier?
She's a city councilwoman.
25-year city councilor, former mayor. She's on our board of directors. I had reached out to her to serve on the board because Rita's Rita, and everybody loves Rita.
Right. Plus the work she does in her own private profession.
Absolutely.
She works with
and Mike, you're leaving yourself out of this too. Mike obviously was the first person I contacted about being involved with this because he won't blow his own horn, so I will. Mike has helped in the 33 years tomorrow that he has been licensed. Mike has helped, honestly, thousands of people in the greater Lowell area. And when I say thousands, I mean thousands. I bump into people, and even when I was out drinking, honestly, I would bump into people that weren't drinking, and they would say, "Oh, you know the guy who got me sober?" I'm like, "Yeah, who's that?" I don't know many people who get people sober. Mike Miles. I'm like, no kidding. And that was before I even knew you were a counselor back then.
Right.
And our connection came through we served on boards together.
Correct. School committee and selectmen.
And it's just been amazing. It's been an amazing thing that this little thing that we were going to bring as a meeting space has morphed itself into a community.
Right. There's a saying, and there's a few of them, but one of them is let go and let God. And again, religion, excuse me, is everybody's entitled to their own beliefs, and I don't ever try to judge anyone. But I'm a firm believer in some type of higher power. There's no doubt about it. But it's amazing sometimes if you just get out of the way and just kind of see what happens. Like, I know you were banging your head off the wall. The first building we looked at on Bridge Street, it was a great opportunity. It was a free building, and the only problem was
General Hospital.
Yeah, the only problem was that there was no space. It was just confined. It was little cubicles. So, leaving there was difficult for you, I know, because you really wanted to get going with this. But all of a sudden, you have this phenomenal space that's just going to. I know this is going to be successful only because of the people you name. I just want to go back to Tommy Golden. You talked about the opiate epidemic. I had 5 very close friends that have lost their sons to this addiction. And I'm sure you know people. We all know people. I've been a clinical social worker, licensed alcohol drug counselor for almost 20 years. I've worked with scores of people in their families and done what I can. I've been to too many wakes, too many funerals. It's just it's not a good thing. But Tommy Golden has been in the forefront of this before it was even popular to be in the forefront. And I just believe someone like himself, who's very, very humble. He has a lot of other things he's doing too.
Yep.
But having him on board with this is just such a plus.
And I often wondered why he was so passionate about that flag he was carrying for the opioid crisis.
Right.
He was warning that it was coming to the Merrimack Valley years before it came,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, someone said, his wife is a pharmacist, and then it clicked. His wife saw these doctors overwriting prescriptions, just haphazardly writing these scripts, and she warned Tom. She said, "Tom, this is going to get out of control."
Sure.
So that's where he gained his passion, and so it makes perfect sense. And I've heard Charlie Baker, the governor of Massachusetts, state, not locally, talk about the opioid crisis in the Merrimack Valley and how Tom Golden was so far ahead of the curve.
Sure, and I look back at my own police career. I was a policeman for 35 years, and I look back at a guy like Ed Davis, who was the superintendent in Lowell, who in the 80s, him and a large number of police officers, who included two other chiefs of police, Ken LaValle, Billy Taylor, basically set the city on fire, getting rid of all these drug houses. I think they shut down well over 150 drug houses. They made so many arrests. Ed Davis, Ken LaValle, Billy Taylor, three chiefs of police that not only understand addiction, but they want to be part of helping the problem, not just talking about it, not just locking people up, putting them in jail. No, they went above and beyond. And I think that hodgepodge of involvement in the community, Tommy Golden, those chiefs of police, different people in different departments, has made such a difference in Lowell. Still got a long way to go with this opioid epidemic, and I think we'll get there. Maybe not in our lifetime, but not in my lifetime, but I'm pretty sure we will get there, hopefully,
Yeah. If I can, there's in speaking to Eileen Donahue, I was trying to figure out how I could express to her that the actual need and what a value, the Bridge Club, what an asset to the Bridge Club was going to be to the city of Lowell.
Right.
And I was talking to my friend Dave Hicks, who I mentioned earlier, down in Florida. We talk on almost a daily basis.
Right.
He's my pseudo sponsor. He won't admit to that, but that's okay because he kicks it back across the net to me, volleys it back. That's the beauty of this fellowship, I'll tell you. Just two alcoholics helping each other, just by generally talking. But I was expressing my concern about how I was going to express this to the city manager, what the actual need was and what we were going to become. And he didn't quote it, but he texted me a bit later, and I'm going to read what he texted me. It's like planting a seed that you can't be positive what will grow into. The community should be the one to define what it becomes according to the challenges it is facing with regard to recovery from drug and alcohol addiction. You can't expect to know exactly what all the needs are. The intent is to provide the resources and an open space to help serve some of those needs and allow it to grow and change as the needs of the community change. I mean, perfect quote. That quote is going on our literature.
Yeah,
I love it. And that's Dave Hicks. I wish I could take credit for that, but that's David Hicks. So anyway.
We have people behind the scenes that have written grants, people that are out there beating the bushes, trying to, scare up funds. And this is gonna be like everything else. It's going to be an expensive endeavor.
Without question.
But however, I think there's a definite need for this. I can't think of anybody that's got more skin in the game right now than you do, certainly, because you've kind of put your life on hold to get this going. So, Bob, if people wanted to make donations, if they wanted to get involved, right now they could notify Genesis House, obviously, to get to you. But
yes,
to get to you personally, Bob.
Yep. Well, me personally is easy. We do have our website has just been constructed.
Right.
And it is just what it says. It's www.bridgeclubofgreaterlowell.com. And the website, as I said, is under construction. It's just being finished as we speak. And that's going to have a link that you can click on, and that will go to our GoFundMe page.
Right.
which is in conjunction with PayPal, because we are a registered 501c3 now.
Right.
Thanks to Colleen Gary, State Representative Colleen Gary. And that will, the PayPal will actually generate a tax-exempt certificate for you, so you can write that off on your taxes.
Right.
So that is all up in part of the website. You can go to the website for further information as we go along. But it's www.bridgeclubofgreaterlowell.com.
Super. Bob, I can't thank you enough for coming today,
Mike,
spending
I can't
some time
thank you
with
enough
us.
for having me.
And Friends in Recovery podcast. If you have any questions, you need anything, you want to talk to somebody, you can contact Skylar at Genesis House. You can also contact Melissa. Our number's been flashing across. Friends in Recovery podcast has been, and Genesis House has been flashing across the screen, I believe, for the whole episode. Is that right, Mr. Ed Sullivan?
I would say the majority of the episode.
The majority. I'd
just like to say thank you again to the people down at the Genesis House for doing what you've done for me.
Right. And I want to thank the people behind the scenes that are helping us. We didn't mention a lot of names, but we will be doing another podcast probably about 3 or 4 months from now. See where we're at. All right, Bob Cox, thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.